Welcome to the deep dive. We've got quite a collection of sources here, all focused on artificial intelligence. And, that feeling you might have that everything AI is changing incredibly fast.
Oh yeah, that feeling is definitely out there.
Well, these sources, they don't just confirm it, they show it's happening at a speed and a scale that might actually be unprecedented.
That's absolutely right. It's not just like steady progress anymore. The material we've looked at paints this picture of exponential acceleration, pretty much
Ugh.
across the board, development, adoption, everything.
Exactly. So, our mission today is basically to guide you through this material. We want to pull out the most crucial insights, some of the frankly mind bending facts, and the really big trends that are reshaping the whole AI landscape, like right now.
hmm
Think of this as your shortcut,
Yeah.
a way to get up to speed on the sheer velocity of change happening in this really transformative moment.
And we'll be digging into the key areas that really jump out from these sources. Things like how AI is being adopted by users at speeds we've just never seen before.
Right.
The uh, colossal investments pouring into building the infrastructure needed. That powerful dynamic where AI performance is just skyrocketing while the costs are plummeting.
A classic tech story, but on steroids, it seems.
Totally. And then how it's already changing how we work, and also that intense global race that's unfolding right in front of us.
It is a lot, definitely. But let's try and navigate through the data together and make sense of it all for you. So, where should we start? I think something fundamental that just leaps out is the speed, the sheer speed AI is reaching users.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. What's really striking in the data is the user growth, particularly with this latest wave. Things like ChatGPT. It's charting completely new territory. It's not just fast. The sources are framing it as historically significant.
Historically significant, yeah. That almost feels like an understatement when you look at some of these numbers. I mean, ChatGPT hitting 800 million weekly active users.
It's huge.
The sources describe that ramp up as, quote, hard to match, never. They even call it history's biggest overnight success, even though, we know it took years of work behind the scenes. But what made this diffusion so different from, say, the internet?
Well, the key difference the material highlights is the almost simultaneous global availability.
Ah,
Unlike the early internet, which sort of spread more slowly, country by country, layer by layer, ChatGPT basically hit the global stage all at once. If you had internet access pretty much anywhere, you could potentially use it straight away.
right. No waiting for the rollout in your region, essentially.
Exactly. And that just changes the adoption curve completely, collapses the timeline.
That instantaneous global reach is, well, it's massive. And there's a comparison in these sources, a chart, that really brings this speed difference home, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a really striking visual. It shows getting to 90% internet penetration globally took something like 23 years, a long time. Now compare that to data they present on a leading U.S. large language model, an LLM. It apparently achieved 90% reach among its current internet user base outside North America in just 3 years.
3 years versus 23.
Right. Now, there's an important nuance there, which the sources do point out. It's reaching people already online. It's not bringing totally new users onto the internet itself.
Okay, got it. So it's penetration within the existing online population.
Precisely. But even with that caveat, reaching almost everyone who could use it that quickly, compared to past tech waves, it's just astonishing. It's a different ballgame.
It really speaks volumes about the immediate utility people found in it and how accessible it was made. And it's not just about signing up, is it? It's about how much people are actually using it. The data shows engagement is soaring too.
Absolutely. For the ChatGPT app specifically, one source mentioned daily time spent was up over 200%. I think it was plus 202% over just 21 months.
Wow.
So people aren't just trying it out once. They're integrating it, making it a regular part of their day, their workflow.
That deep engagement makes sense. And this intense user adoption, it must be having knock-on effects across the whole tech ecosystem, right? It's not happening in a vacuum.
Oh, definitely. It's acting as this incredibly powerful tailwind. You can see it clearly if you look at the growth within, say, the NVIDIA ecosystem, which the sources track pretty closely.
Okay, what is that true?
Well, over just a few years, they estimate between 2021 and 2025, the number of developers using NVIDIA's platform specifically for AI work jumped sixfold, a plus 6x increase, up to 6 million developers.
6 million?
Yeah, and AI startups within that ecosystem, up nearly 4 times, plus 3.9s, to around 27,000. And the number of applications actually using their GPUs went up about 2.5 times, plus 2.4x to 4,000.
So that's a clear indicator that this isn't just a consumer fad. It's driving a massive wave of actual development, new companies, new tools.
Exactly. It shows the foundation being built out.
Okay, so the demand side, users, developers, it's accelerating like crazy. But for all that software and all those users to actually do anything, you need the hardware. You need serious computing power. And that brings us neatly to the next really big theme in these sources. The massive, and I mean massive, investment pouring into AI infrastructure.
Yeah, this is where the numbers start to sound almost unreal. The capital expenditure, or CapEx, figures are just staggering. The material highlights the spending by the big six U.S. tech companies,
Right.
Apple, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta.
The giants.
Right. Their combined CapEx saw a plus 63% year-over-year increase in 2024. That's not just growth. That's a significant acceleration in spending compared to previous years.
63% increase year on year. And where's a huge chunk of that cash going?
A very large portion is going into building the physical foundation for AI. We're talking data centers.
Right. The engine rooms.
Yeah, exactly. Just looking at the U.S., the value of data center construction saw accelerated annual growth of plus 49% over the last 2 years. Its construction boom, almost entirely fueled by AI demand.
49% annual growth in construction value. That's huge. And it's not just the amount of money, is it? It's the speed they're getting built.
That's another mind-bending aspect. The sources mention the example of xAI's Colossus supercomputer. Apparently, it was constructed start to finish in 122 days.
Just over 4 months for a supercomputer.
Yeah. Jensen Huang from NVIDIA apparently described that build speed as superhuman. And think about what that implies. You've got major complex infrastructure projects being completed on timelines that feel more like consumer electronics release cycles than traditional multi-year construction projects.
That's a really interesting point. The speed of physical build-out itself is becoming like a tech cycle.
It seems that way, driven by the urgency of AI capacity needs.
But building these enormous data centers, these compute factories at this kind of pace, that has a fundamental requirement, doesn't it? Energy, power.
Absolutely critical, and the sources highlight this clearly. Data centers were estimated to consume around 1.5% of global electricity in 2024.
1.5% globally, that sounds like a lot already.
It is significant, and that figure is projected to grow rapidly. The data suggests it's been growing about plus 12% globally per year since 2017.
12% growth per year in energy consumption.
Yeah, and that energy demand isn't evenly spread. It's geographically concentrated. The U.S. leads by a significant margin, about 45% of that data center energy consumption, followed by China at around 25%.
Okay.
And this isn't just a side detail. The sources explicitly state that AI's progress is increasingly becoming bottlenecked, not just by chip supply, which we hear a lot about, or data availability,
But by power.
but by the limitations of the power grid. The ability to actually generate and deliver enough electricity reliably to these massive power-hungry facilities, that's becoming a major constraint.
Fascinating. So, okay, massive spending, huge data centers being built incredibly fast, running into energy bottlenecks. Who's the main beneficiary on the hardware side from all this spending?
Well, the sources make it pretty clear that, for now at least, NVIDIA remains central. Their data center revenue is capturing a growing slice of that global data center CapEx pie, exceeding 25% according to the material.
A quarter of all the spending is going to them.
Roughly, yeah. And their own quarterly revenue reflects this. The figures cited for their January 2025 fiscal quarter were around $39 billion. That's up plus 78% year over year. Huge growth.
78% growth. Incredible.
And the sources also try to visualize the sheer scale of compute power being installed. They show installed GPU computing power globally has increased something like over 100 times in about 6 years. Just an explosion of raw processing capability.
So, NVIDIA is clearly dominant, but are other players just sitting back, or are they trying to build their own solutions?
No, definitely not sitting back. The material touches on the strategic moves by other giants. Google with their tensor processing units, their TPUs, which they've been developing for years,
Right.
and Amazon with their own custom silicon, like the Trainium chips designed for AI training.
So they're investing heavily in building their own specialized hardware. Why?
The goal is usually about optimizing performance and, crucially, cost for their specific massive-scale workloads. Amazon, for instance, claims their latest Trainium 2 chip offers something like 30–40% better price performance compared to current GPUs for training models.
Okay, so it's about efficiency and cost savings at scale.
Exactly. It shows that even within this hardware boom, there's intense competition and investment in finding the most efficient engine to power AI. It's not just about buying off the shelf.
This leads us perfectly, actually, into the next major theme that flows through these sources. They give a catchy title, the perpetual AHA,
Right.
and it seems to be this core engine driving the whole AI revolution forward. It's about this interplay between cost, performance, and usage.
Yeah, it's a classic pattern you see in successful technologies, but AI seems to be executing this cycle with just extreme acceleration. The idea of the perpetual AHA is basically declining costs plus improving performance leads inevitably to rising adoption.
And that rising adoption then fuels more investment.
Exactly. Which drives further cost reductions and performance improvements, and the cycle just keeps spinning faster and faster.
So what's the evidence for this playing out so strongly in AI right now?
The sources provide some really stark evidence. They show charts illustrating how the relative cost of key technologies, including things like the cost per token for using models like ChatGPT, are falling steeply year after year compared to when they were first introduced.
So it's just getting cheaper and cheaper to actually use these AI models.
Dramatically cheaper. And they also highlight the efficiency gains on the hardware side. Like one example given is NVIDIA's Hopper architecture, offering something like 105,000 times less energy per token computed compared to one of their chips from back in 2014.
Wow, 105,000 times more energy efficient. That's not incremental.
Not at all. Think about the compound effect of those kinds of efficiency gains on overall operational costs and capabilities.
Okay, so costs are plummeting. What about the other side of the equation, performance? Is it really improving that fast too?
Oh, absolutely. Dramatically. AI models aren't just getting slightly better. Their capabilities are converging and surpassing previous limits incredibly rapidly. The sources point to benchmarks like MMLU.
MMLU, what's that?
It stands for Massive Multitask Language Understanding. It's basically a very comprehensive test designed to evaluate a model's knowledge and reasoning abilities across a huge range of subjects from, like, humanities to STEM.
Okay, so a broad measure of intelligence.
Sort of, yeah. And the key finding highlighted is that top models actually surpassed the benchmark for human-level accuracy, which was pegged at 89.8% sometime in 2024.
So on that broad test, the best AIs are now scoring better than humans.
According to that specific benchmark and the data presented, yes. And it's not just about factual knowledge or test scores, it's also about how these models interact, how human-like they seem.
Ah, the whole Turing test idea.
Exactly. There was a study mentioned from March 2025. They set up conversations, like a blind test, and apparently 73% of the AI's responses were mistaken for human by the testers.
Nearly three-quarters.
Yeah. And they even gave a specific example with GPT 4.5 where testers were like 87% certain they were talking to a human. They described its style as having human vibes.
Human vibes, that's the thing. And this leap in realism isn't just text, is it? The sources mention other areas, too.
Right. They show these visual comparisons of image generation, mid-journey going from version 1 to version 7. The jump in photorealism and coherence is just incredible over a relatively short time.
Yeah, those comparisons are striking.
And they also mentioned advances in audio, things like voice generation and translation from companies like 11 Labs, creating synthetic voices that are becoming really, really difficult to distinguish from actual human speakers.
Okay, so you've got this powerful combination. The cost per use is falling off a cliff. The performance, whether it's knowledge, conversation, image generation, audio, is exploding upwards.
And what's the natural result?
Usage surges.
Right.
It enables completely new applications, new services, things that maybe weren't economically viable or technically possible before.
Precisely. It's that perpetual AHA cycle running in hyperdrive. AI gets cheaper, it gets better, and so it becomes more and more ubiquitous.
This leads us very naturally then to a really significant shift that the material highlights, the rise of what they're calling AI agents, moving beyond just chatbots.
Yeah, less just answering questions, more actually doing things.
Right. The sources frame it as less assistant, more service provider. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means these aren't just passive tools waiting for a prompt. Agents are conceived as more intelligent, often long-running processes. They're designed to understand complex goals and then figure out the steps needed to execute tasks autonomously. Things like customer support, conducting research, scheduling, making bookings.
So taking actions in the digital world on your behalf.
Exactly. And public interest in this kind of capability is clearly surging. One data point showed global Google searches for the term AI agent increased by over 1,000% plus 1088% in the 16 months leading up to May 2025.
Wow. Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
people are actively looking for this functionality now.
They are. And the major tech companies are responding by building these agentic capabilities directly into their core platforms. The sources list several examples,
Joy.
like OpenAI Operator, Salesforce have Agentforce, Anthropic announced Claude 3.5 having computer use capabilities, Amazon has Nova Act. These are big players rolling out features that allow AI to, navigate software interfaces, pull data from different sources, maybe even make transactions or manage complex customer service cases.
Essentially becoming digital workers that can operate software like humans do.
That's the direction, yes. And this maturing of AI capabilities, moving towards agency, is a huge driver for enterprise adoption, which is another key focus in the sources.
Right, businesses actually using this stuff internally. How is that progressing?
Well, AI is rapidly moving up the priority list for traditional businesses. It's not just tech companies anymore. The sources show that over 50% of the S&P 500 companies are now mentioning AI specifically on their earnings calls.
Half the S&P 500, that's compared to what? Basically zero a decade ago?
Pretty much, yeah. It shows it's firmly on the mainstream corporate agenda now.
And what are their main goals when they adopt AI? Is it just about cutting costs, replacing people?
Interestingly, the sources suggest that initially the primary objective isn't purely about cost reduction. It seems more focused on things like broader internal employee productivity and automating or assisting with specialized worker labor savings.
So augmenting their existing workforce, making experts more efficient rather than just wholesale replacement.
That appears to be the initial focus highlighted in the material, yes. Helping people do their current jobs better or faster, or handling complex tasks that required specialized expertise.
Do we have examples of companies actually deploying this and seeing results?
Yeah, the source gives some concrete examples. JP Morgan is mentioned for its end-to-end AI modernization effort. They're projecting significant value increases from AI and machine learning estimates of plus 35% and then plus 65% annual increases in value derived.
Big numbers for a company that size.
Huge. And another example is Yum Brands, the parent company of KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell. They're using an AI platform called Byte for managing their restaurants, optimizing things like scheduling, inventory, maybe even promotions, all based on AI insights.
So applying it to core operational challenges. And what about AI within specific industries? Are we seeing specialized AI companies taking off?
That's where some of the most explosive growth seems to be happening. The sources provide some really eye-popping numbers for AI-enabled software companies focused on particular verticals. They measure it by annual recurring revenue, or ARR.
Okay, lay some of those on
All
it.
right, so in software engineering tools, a company called AnySphere Cursor apparently saw plus 300x ARR growth in just 25 months, hitting $300 million ARR.
300.
Yeah. In healthcare documentation, a bridge grew plus 134% ARR in just 5 months to $117 million. Legal tech company Harvey, plus 7x ARR in 15 months to $70 million. Customer service AI, Decagon, up plus 10x ARR in a single year to $10 million. And in financial services data, AlphaSense grew plus 2.8x ARR in 2 years to hit $420 million.
Those aren't just healthy growth rates, that's hypergrowth. What does that tell us?
It suggests that while general AI models are powerful, maybe the most immediate, concentrated value, the kind that drives that kind of ARR growth, is being created by AI applications that are deeply embedded within specific industry workflows, solving very concrete business problems in those specialized domains.
That makes sense. Tailored solutions deliver tangible value quickly. Okay, so this widespread adoption in businesses, the rise of agents, this inevitably brings us to the impact on work itself, the job market.
Yes, the sources are pretty unequivocal on this point. AI is fundamentally reshaping the job market and how we even think about the tasks humans do.
This is the big question on everyone's mind, isn't it? What does this mean for my job, my career? What does the data show about skill demand?
The data gives a pretty clear signal about where demand is shifting. Looking at U.S. job postings, AI-specific roles were up a massive plus 448% over the 7 years between early 2018 and spring 2025.
Wow, nearly a five-fold increase in AI job ads.
Exactly. Now contrast that with traditional non-AI IT job postings over that same period, They were actually down slightly by -9%.
Down 9%. So clear reweighting in the market towards AI skills.
A very clear reweighting. And corporate leaders are starting to be quite direct about this shift in their messaging, too.
How so?
The sources include a quote from Shopify's CEO. He basically said that if you're not actively using AI tools in your craft, whatever your job is, then, quote, stagnation is almost certain. He frames it like you have to actively climb just to stay still relative to those adopting AI.
That's a pretty stark warning.
It is. And the CEO of Duolingo apparently went even further in an internal communication discussed in the sources. He announced the company is explicitly going AI first.
AI first. What does that mean in practice?
Well, they detailed specific policy changes. Things like making the use of AI tools a factor in employee performance reviews, and linking future requests for adding headcount directly to efforts made to automate tasks first using AI.
Okay, so that's not theoretical anymore. That's tying AI adoption directly to performance management and staffing decisions.
Exactly. It shows how deeply it's embedding into corporate strategy and operations.
And what's driving this push from the company's perspective? Is it delivering results?
The driver seems clear from the data presented. It's productivity gains. The sources cite studies showing tangible increases. For example, one study found a 14% increase in productivity for customer support agents using AI tools.
14%. That's significant.
It is. And it ties directly back to those enterprise goals we talked about, augmenting employee capabilities, achieving savings in specialized labor areas.
And NVIDIA's Jensen Huang had that really memorable quote on this, didn't he? It's included here.
Yes, probably the most quoted line on the topic recently. He views AI, on the one hand, as this greatest opportunity for us to close the technology divide, potentially bringing, he estimated, 40 million workers back into the global workforce, boosting GDP.
An optimistic view.
Yes, but then comes the crucial warning for individuals. He said, you're not going to lose your job to an AI, but to somebody who uses AI.
Right. That really reframes the challenge, doesn't it? It's not human versus machine, but human with machine versus human without.
Precisely. It puts the onus on individuals to adapt and leverage these tools.
Okay, so stepping back from individual jobs and companies, this intense acceleration in AI, it's not just happening within one country, it's playing out on a global stage, right? Fueling a pretty significant competitive race.
Absolutely. The sources explicitly frame this global dynamic as creating, quote, AI monetization threats. And they identify three key drivers for this: rising competition generally, the growing momentum of open source models, and the rapid rise of China in the AI space.
Let's talk about that US-China dynamic first. How is it portrayed?
It's described pretty directly as an AI space race, a competition with the potential to fundamentally reshape the global order, depending on who leads in this critical technology.
A new space race, but for AI dominance.
Essentially, yes. The sources note China's significant strategic focus and acceleration in AI since its Made in China 2025 initiative was launched. They highlight investments and progress in key AI sectors, including specific mentions of military applications, things like autonomous decision-making, logistics, command and control.
And the sources also include that quote from Sam Altman, right? Raising concerns about the potential global risks.
Yes, concerns about what happens if authoritarian regimes achieve a decisive lead in AI. He mentioned risks like forced data sharing on a global scale, pervasive spying capabilities, and the development of next-generation cyber weapons. It really underscores the geopolitical stakes involved and the different values that might get embedded into AI systems, depending on who develops them most effectively.
It's not just about economic competition then, and the material presents data showing China is making rapid progress technically too.
It does. It mentions specific examples of Chinese models like Alibaba's Qwen 2.5 Max, apparently surpassing some competitors on certain benchmarks, and Baidu's Ernie 4.5 Turbo being noted for strong performance but at a significantly lower cost than some Western counterparts.
So performance is catching up and cost might be an advantage.
That seems to be the implication. They even note that China now has a higher installed base of industrial robots than the rest of the world combined, showing their focus on automation extends into the physical realm too.
Okay, so that's the national competition aspect. What about the open source factor you mentioned? How does that play into the competitive landscape?
That's another huge dynamic shaping the field. The sources show that open source AI models are closing the performance gap with the big closed source proprietary models much faster than many expected.
So the free or publicly available models are getting almost as good as the commercial ones.
They're getting closer, yes, while often still offering users significant cost advantages since you can run them yourself or pay less for access. Meta's Llama model is a key example here. One source mentioned it had over 1 billion downloads by April 2025.
A billion downloads. That's massive adoption by developers.
Huge. And Mark Zuckerberg is quoted predicting that open source will eventually become the largest category of AI models used by developers, potentially commoditizing some aspects of the current leader's advantages.
Interesting. So intense national competition plus this powerful open source movement challenging the incumbents. And just the sheer number of models seems to be exploding.
Completely. The sources quantify this proliferation. They show something like a plus 1,150% increase in the release of large-scale multimodal models, ones that handle text, images, audio, etc., over just 2 years.
1,100% increase.
Yeah, and a plus 420% increase in large language models released over the same period. It's just a flood of new models hitting the market.
And the pace of announcements feels relentless.
It does. They even highlight the intensity of a single week in May 2025, where you had major product announcements or updates hitting from Google, Microsoft, Anthropic, OpenAI, all practically on top of each other. The market isn't just competitive, it's iterating at this almost dizzying breakneck speed.
Okay, wow. So this relentless innovation, the competition, it brings us to the final fascinating area covered in these sources, which is AI's expanding reach beyond the purely digital world and its potential impact on billions of people who aren't even online yet.
Right, moving beyond software and into the physical world. The concept of physical world AI is key here. We're talking about intelligence being embedded directly into tangible things, vehicles, machines, industrial systems. The sources mention the emergence of physical agents.
Physical agents, so robots and autonomous systems, basically.
Essentially, yes. But increasingly powered by the same kind of sophisticated AI driving the language and image models. And we're seeing compelling real-world examples of this taking shape.
Like what?
Well, Tesla's full self-driving system is a prominent one. After a major architectural rewrite using neural networks, the sources note its cumulative driven miles increased by roughly 100 times in just 33 months. Astronomical growth in real-world usage.
100-fold increase in autonomous miles driven.
Yeah. And then there's Waymo, Google's self-driving car company. In San Francisco, their fully autonomous vehicles apparently went from having basically zero market share in ride-sharing to capturing 27% of the market in just 20 months.
0 to over a quarter of the market in under 2 years. That's rapid disruption.
Very rapid. And there are other examples mentioned too. Companies like Applied Intuition, which builds simulation and software platforms to help other companies develop autonomy for cars, trucks, construction equipment, even defense applications. They're kind of abstracting the complexity.
Providing the tools for others to build physical AI.
Exactly. And Dural is mentioned for its AI-enabled autonomous defense systems drones, sensor networks apparently showing impressive plus 2x year-over-year revenue growth for 2 years running.
So defense is a major area too.
It seems so. And even in unexpected areas like resource exploration, a company called Cobalt Metals is using AI to analyze geological data and predict where to find mineral deposits like copper, lithium, cobalt. They're reportedly achieving higher discovery rates per dollar spent than the industry average.
Using AI to find resources more efficiently.
And one more, agriculture.
Huh?
Carbon Robotics uses AI and computer vision on autonomous farming equipment to identify and eliminate weeds precisely, reducing the need for herbicides.
Okay, so these are all examples of physical capital, real-world assets, transforming into intelligent, software-defined endpoints thanks to AI.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, the sources touch on one more potentially massive shift related to access. The estimated 2.6 billion people around the world who are not yet online.
Still a huge number of people without internet access.
It is. But with the cost of things like satellite internet falling dramatically, Starlink is the prime example given. Now with over 5 million subscribers and showing plus 202% annual growth, these unconnected populations will increasingly gain internet access over the coming years.
Okay, so billions more people coming online. What's the AI angle here?
Here's the really intriguing point the sources raise. These new users might not experience the internet like we did, starting with browsers and search bars. They might start their entire online experience from scratch with AI functionality.
What does that mean? Like talking to an AI is their primary interface?
Potentially, yes. The sources suggest imagining an agent-first internet experience, where your interaction with the digital world is primarily managed by an AI agent, rather than you manually navigating websites and apps.
So the AI could sort of act as your gateway, understanding your needs and fetching information or completing tasks across different services.
That's the idea. And if that happens at scale, it could fundamentally upend the existing digital hierarchies. Think about it. It could disintermediate the dominant platforms like search engines and app stores if users interact primarily through an overarching AI agent instead.
That is a provocative idea. AI not just changing how we use the internet, but potentially defining the very first interaction billions of people have with the internet.
Exactly. It highlights how deep the potential shifts could go.
So, okay, when you take all of this together, I mean, the unprecedented user adoption, the absolutely massive infrastructure build-out happening at an incredible speed, the relentless performance gains paired with falling costs driving that perpetual AHA cycle, then the rise of AI agents moving into the enterprise, the fundamental shifts happening in the landscape of work and skills, the intense global competition heating up, and finally, AI expanding into the physical world and potentially reshaping access for billions of new users.
Yeah, it paints a picture of a technological transformation moving at just incredible velocity across multiple fronts simultaneously.
Absolutely. And hopefully, the knowledge we've managed to pull together from this deep dive gives you, our listeners, a kind of powerful shortcut, a way to really understand the forces shaping this moment in AI, and maybe think about how they might impact your own professional life or just your daily experience with technology.
That's the goal, to provide that context and clarity.
So, to wrap things up then, these sources, they vividly confirm that feeling many of us have that sense of hyperspeed change in the world of AI. It's not just a feeling, it's measurable. We see it in user numbers, investment dollars, benchmark scores, real-world applications.
The data is pretty overwhelming.
Competition is fierce, nationally and commercially. The nature of work is evolving right before our eyes. And AI's reach is expanding beyond screens into the physical world and towards populations who might experience the internet in a completely new way.
It really does feel like a period of unusually rapid and profound transformation.
For sure. Now, these sources give us incredible data showing exactly how fast AI is moving and where the innovation and the capital are flowing. We've covered a lot of that ground. But given this truly unprecedented speed and scale we've discussed today, here's maybe something to keep mulling over.
Okay.
What new, perhaps fundamental challenges or societal shifts might emerge because of the sheer velocity of change? Things we aren't even fully contemplating or preparing for yet, simply because everything is moving so fast. It feels like a really big question as this AI era continues to unfold at this pace.
That is an essential question to ponder, isn't it? What are the second and third order effects of moving this fast?
Exactly. Something for all of us to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the current state of AI.